This show is brought to you by listeners and viewers like you. EvanX.com Tesla accessories, our TeslaOwnersOnline.com community, and our Patreon supporters at patreon.com/TeslaOwnersOnline. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Tesla Owners Online Show. This is episode number 110, Thursday, November 25th, 2021. And I want to say thank you to everybody who's been joining us over the last, a little while anyways. And I know we're very appreciative of your time because sometimes these podcasts run a little bit long. But today we have something very special. We have a couple of guests that are going to be joining us. But first I want to bring on my co-host here, Ian. Ian, how you been, buddy?
I am doing just peachy. How about you, Mr. Peach?
Oh, well, you know how it is. Just no rest for the wicked. And hopefully this whole podcast will turn out good for us because I got a brand new setup. So this is the third time for us using this software. The software is pretty reliable, but with a new system, you never know what's going to happen. But anyways, it is what it is. And that's my job, is to make this stuff work for you guys. Anyways, today we have a couple of guests that I want to bring on. Now, if you guys haven't been paying attention, last year Ian and I did a cross-Canada trip. And we did that in 3 days. How many minutes again was it, Ian?
73 hours, 27 minutes, and 48 seconds.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Not that I'm counting.
Right. So having said that, these two gentlemen that we're bringing on today, we have Kent Rathwell, who's the founder and CEO of Sun Country Highway, which is an electric vehicle charging network for over 4,000 charging stations across North America. Matter of fact, they were there before Tesla even had superchargers. Mm-hmm. And also joining us this evening is his partner in crime, Harvey Soicher, CEO of Soicher Agencies. Now, these two gentlemen back in September did a cross-Canada electric vehicle drive, similar to what Ian and I did, but they went one step a little further. They actually went from
whole enchilada.
Yeah, exactly. They did the whole Trans-Canada Highway, which is something that a lot of people kind of took Ian and I up on. It was like, you guys didn't do cross-Canada because you didn't do from zero to the other end.
We took some heat for that.
Yeah, we took a little bit of heat, but the point was that Ian and I decided to do it strictly on the supercharging network because it was kind of a test for us because Tesla had opened up the superchargers literally just a couple weeks before. So we decided to do it and stay on the mainland because when you're going to, Newfoundland, there's a ferry. And of course, when you get to Victoria, there's also a ferry. So we elected to stay on the mainland. But anyways, these two gentlemen decided to do it in the entire length using an e-Tron, a Audi e-Tron. By the way, I'm going to put a link in the show notes for you guys to actually watch and see what they've done. The website is marianneselectricdrive.com. And like I said, I'll put a link in the show notes. You guys can certainly check it out. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Well, I'm happy to be here.
Excellent.
And thanks for inviting us. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So Ian, all the credit goes to Ian for organizing this particular interview, and he has a list of questions and stuff. So I think I'm going to kind of hand it off to Ian and let him get the ball rolling. And if I have questions, I'll kind of interject because Ian has a lot of the data, and these two guys are going to be able to jump in and tell us a little bit about that. So, all right, Ian, take it away.
All right. Well, my first question, I think what everybody would like to know, if they're not familiar with it already, is, Harvey, this was kind of your brainchild. I know you did the drive originally at a little bit of a slower pace in 2019. And the whole reasoning behind it is it is a fundraiser, a memorial drive of sorts. And I was wondering if you could take a little time and walk us through that, like why the drive, what's significant about it, and everything that's really important about this project.
Well, it is. I'll try and shorten it as best I can. My wife, Marianne, my late wife, passed away 3 years ago.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
I was very much enthralled, and it all started from the documentary Revenge of the Electric Car, where I was introduced at the time to four entrepreneurs, one from GM, one from Nissan, one who was just a garage guy converting old antique cars into electric cars, and of course Elon Musk. And Elon was the one that it really impressed me incredibly. I mean, I couldn't not go back to the Tesla website after I saw the show. I started at 8 o'clock in the evening, and I went into one YouTube to one other YouTube to different things. I learned a lot about Elon just in that one evening, and I didn't get to bed till like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. If I had to, I had a golf game the next morning. Anyway, that was my hook, and I was a Tesla fan right from the beginning. I told my wife, Marianne, I want to get a Tesla. And when the Model 3s came out, she drove me to, even before the launch, like the day that everybody was lining up at all the Tesla stores, and I was one of them. I think it was number 80 in Vancouver on Robson Street, and put my $1,000 down. I bought a Tesla ball cap, Tesla golf balls, Tesla T-shirt. I was totally all in. And I asked Marianne, we've never been to Newfoundland before. We traveled all across the country. And I thought, when we get the car, like the Model 3, let's take it on a long road trip all the way to Newfoundland and just have a great time. If I sound a little emotional, it's because, it was an emotional,
Sure.
moment for me, of course, when she passed away and she wasn't able to do the trip. And so I thought I would do the trip, in her name. So that's why it's called Marianne's Electric Drive. And so that was one reason to do it. But the other reason was I'm an electric vehicle advocate, just like you guys are. And I really believe that this is the future. And, when I first started finding about Elon, that was about 6 years ago. And, look where, Tesla's come, look where the rest of the automotive industry is going. And, the future is evident that it's going to be, huge for EVs. I mean, that's where the future is. But when 2 years ago, the EV infrastructure in Canada, and especially in northern Canada, was really few and far between. I had to rely on public chargers from BC Hydro, from EV Route, and I went all the way across to Newfoundland, and I just wanted to show people, anybody that was interested in EVs or people that were not, that you can actually take an EV on a long trip. That was the big objection, range anxiety and all that.
We've heard it all.
Yeah, I mean, you guys heard it all. Yeah. So by telling people that you can take it on a long trip, and I figured, well, Newfoundland's not a bad distance. That'll show people that you can make it. And at that time, because the infrastructure wasn't that great at the time, it was a real challenge, and I'm up for a challenge. So, and there were some times where it was tight, but I made it. I made it without getting stuck. And on the way back, going through the United States, it was the infrastructure 2.5 years ago was way better. I mean, the Electrify America charging stations were just getting implemented in a big way. And there was one day that I actually did 1,400 kilometers in one go. And with 4 chargers, it was, I don't think anybody has done 1,400 kilometers in a one-day period solo. I was solo. But that just shows you the infrastructure was so much better in the States. And it is getting better in Canada now. And, because of COVID, this is where the second trip, really came into play. And of course, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I forgot to mention, the fundraising. My wife had a ruptured brain aneurysm 20 years ago, and her favorite charity was to support her surgeon that did a full craniotomy to repair her ruptured brain aneurysm. And so she donated money to his research on Parkinson's. That was his focus. And so she donated a lot of money every year. And again, before she passed away, a legacy donation. So it just made sense for me to support, what she wanted. So, and then of course, the other thing was just to have a lot of fun, take photos. I'm a photographer. I just wanted to have a really great trip. And the reason why I chose the e-Tron was because I was still working and I needed more space in an electric vehicle. Prior to that, my wife and I would have 2 cars, and I could use, my Touareg or her larger, Quattro Q5 to do for my samples. But the Model 3 I didn't think was going to be sufficient enough, and I just thought the Model X having the gull wing doors or falcon wing doors, I just didn't like the fact that you couldn't put a roof rack on it, or surfboard, or skis, or bikes, or whatever. and the price was significantly higher than the e-Tron. So I chose the e-Tron instead, and I really have no regrets. I mean, I think both the Teslas and the Audis are great, and both have really great powertrains. And I did recognize the fact that the e-Tron didn't have the range that the Model 3 would have. However, down the road with the Electrify America stations and Electrify Canada stations, the charging speed was at that time actually faster. So even though I may not have had the range, I really wouldn't be inconvenienced. And I really had confidence that the e-Tron would be a great quality car. And back in 2018 and early 2019, the Model 3s were having some of the issues with build quality. I mean, that's well documented. And the beta testing was really more done through the employees, whereas Audi took a full year to do their beta testing. And there was one ad that I saw where the Audi was encased in ice. And I just knew with their testing that I would have a quality car. And I also liked the bells and whistles, like the proper instrumentation. I really wasn't keen on the one single screen on the Model 3. I liked the idea of a heads-up display, and there was also other features that I liked on the Audi. And I don't regret getting the Audi. I'm really happy with the car. However, I just think that it's obvious that Tesla has done an amazing job, better than any other car manufacturer as far as manufacturing capability, the electronics, everything they've done, just an amazing job. And I'm really happy to be on the show. But the second trip was really more geared towards COVID. You couldn't travel, for a year and a half. And I wanted to visit my family and friends. I'm originally from Montreal, so I wanted to visit family and friends. And I thought that, I could fly, rent a car, fly, rent a car, fly, rent a car. And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to drive. I'm going to have fun. And I thought that I would just boot it out to initially I was going to do Halifax, but I thought it would make sense to go all the way to Newfoundland. And because if I was, doing a new challenge of seeing how fast I can do it, because the infrastructure was in place now to actually make a new challenge of seeing how fast I could do it. Now, I knew that you guys, did it from Halifax to, Vancouver to Halifax. And I decided that I would want to go all the way to Newfoundland to get in that whole Trans-Canada Highway. And I also didn't want to be honest, totally honest. I didn't want to compete with you guys. And I knew about your trip already, and I just thought doing a different trip and something that was more significant to Canada, where you're going from one end of Trans-Canada Highway, all the way from the furthest point in Eastern Canada, all the way to Vancouver Island, would be a real significant trip. And when I talked to Kent, I asked him, I need a co-pilot. And I asked him, do you know anybody that, would be interested? And what did you say, Kent?
Well, I said, well, I've done it before, so I'll go with you. So
it's as simple as that.
That. It was like literally that quick, just that right.
It sounds like the Ian's phone call to me.
Yeah. But I've never met, and at that point I never met Kent in person. We always talked on the phone, and we always had great conversations. And I had a good relationship with him, even though I'd never met Kent in person. And I didn't even know what he looked like, when we were talking on the phone. And I was wanting to get this trip done, while the daylight hours were really good. But he suggested to do it after Labor Day because the traffic on the highways would really deter a high speed. If we're going to do a high speed trip, we wanted to set a decent record. We knew that nobody else had done it before. We knew that you guys that did it have done it. And, you guys did it in March of 2020, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
And, even though it was colder, you didn't have a lot of traffic to deal with. Whereas when I was, so we decided to do it after Labor Day, when a lot of the holiday traffic and the kids were out of school, back into school, the traffic would be a lot less, and it was a smart decision to do that.
I know for us, one of the impetuses of being able to, of doing the trip was actually to deliberately do it in the coldest month of the year, just to take that out of the equation, because you always, I can't go anywhere when it's cold. Well, you know what? Let's do it in the winter. And obviously you guys did it when you started September 13th, was that right?
Yeah, September 13th. And of course, the temperatures then were not like really super warm either. I mean, on my way across the country, I had a lot of days where the temperatures were 25, 30 degrees. And, the batteries like that warmer temperature.
Yeah.
And I remember a couple of times I was actually quite shocked that some of the ranges that I was getting, like going through Ontario, I was getting an effective range of easily 400, 425, and twice I got 450 kilometers. And I never even got those effective ranges, even on my first trip. My best was 420. And, even though the Audi, is rated only 324 kilometers on a full charge, I was always getting higher. And one of the reasons is because when I configured my Audi e-Tron, I had a choice of 3 different wheel and tire options. And I chose a 19-inch rim, which is a smaller rim than the 20 and 21 inches that were also available. The other tires that would come with those would be like an all-season tire, whereas the 19-inch came with a Bridgestone 001 Alenza tire, which is a true summer tire and geared for EVs and has a much lower rolling resistance than a regular all-season tire. And comparing notes with some of the people that I knew from Audi, I was easily getting 10% more range just for that reason alone. So when you think about it, 325 plus another 10%, I mean, that's 350 without even blinking. So that made a big difference in my ranges. And of course, I knew how to, use the mechanics of the car and learning how to manage ranges. And I was able to eke out better ranges just by the way you drive.
So one of the interesting questions I have then is, I mean, obviously you guys had some sort of relationship via phone or email prior to the event, but you really didn't know each other that well when you decided to hop in the car and go across the country for 5 days straight. That was an interesting gamble. Tell us how that went.
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I drove from St. John's to Victoria back in 2012. Actually, right today, we were on that route. We're driving across the country and the continent, on our 100% level 2 Sun Country highway chargers, right? So that was the first time an electric car had traveled the country, and the first time infrastructure was across any country in the world. And we did it in the middle of the winter, like you guys did, to prove that electric cars could, travel the longest, green highway in the world in the middle of the winter. And I preferred this trip much better. That trip, there was a lot of deadly type of situations, a lot of crazy stuff. I wouldn't let anybody ride in the car with me. It was just too hairy. So, September's much better than in a Canadian winter. Highly don't recommend the winters. So, yeah.
We got lucky. Go ahead, Harvey.
As far as, having Kent as my co-pilot, first of all, I knew about Kent even before, I knew him for at least 3 years. He had there was an article in the Vancouver Sun about the Sun Country Highway. So, I can't remember if there was a picture of you, Kent, but you definitely was talked about. And if it wasn't for your chargers in the first trip, when I went in the summer of 2019, there would have been absolutely no way for me to complete that trip. All across northern BC, Ontario, northern Ontario, especially Newfoundland, there was no other options. And if it wasn't for you, Ken, I wouldn't have been able to do the trip, period. And then the other thing is that I knew that, first of all, I had a lot of respect for you. I knew that you did a lot of driving. I just knew that I would trust you when we were driving at night and people were getting sleepy, of course, and I just knew that if you were going to get sleepy, or if I was going to get sleepy, we would let each other know to change drivers so we can get the proper rest that we needed and to be safe. So I had that confidence that he was a great driver and that he would have his due diligence to keep us safe. So that was big, and just that I just knew that we had a great time, and I couldn't have had a better partner in this trip than you, Kent. Really, honestly, thank you.
Yeah. So thank you, Harry or Harvey.
Harvey.
Yeah, Harvey. Yeah, and for me, it wasn't such a big deal. Harvey's a pretty easy guy to deal with, and I usually work 16, 18, 20-hour days anyway. So what's an extra few hours? So it really wasn't that big of a deal for me to sort of hammer it across. But we just really wanted to make sure that we proved that level 3 charging, and that's what this trip was level 3. We did level 2 back in 2012. So. But to prove that you could, travel very far, very fast, and for those that think they have to charge up their vehicle in 5 minutes, I think it's the wrong narrative. I think the message is, hey, if you want to travel across the widest part of North America in a few days, you can do it in an electric car, and you can do it for a few $100. So obviously, nobody in the right mind would really want to do that.
No.
So that was really, what this trip proved, right? And really what you guys proved as well. And this trip was a universal level 3. So similar but different than what you guys did.
So I have 2 questions for you, and they kind of dovetail in. First of all, how long did you prepare for the trip? And secondly, because you were just talking about level 3 charging, were you trying to use one network exclusively, or did you hop around? Because I know there's Electrify Canada, and there's the ESSO stations as well, or Petro-Canada, I should say. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about, the planning stages and what charging networks did you hop around, or what did you use?
Can I answer that question?
Go ahead.
For sure. Yeah. Go ahead, Harvey.
Okay. First of all, there is no one company that I know of that goes from coast to coast right now. There isn't. So one thing that I was excited about was that throughout BC, Electrify Canada was like 100% all the way across. Fantastic. And then there was a couple of stations, actually what I should do is I should start from east to west as we go.
Please do.
When I went through 2 years ago, there were no high-speed chargers in Newfoundland, 0. And then only recently, right after the beginning of the summer, was when the Newfoundland Hydro commissioned worked in partnership with ChargePoint to put in not 50 kilowatt stations all across the Trans-Canada Highway and I think a few other places in Newfoundland. But there was sufficient chargers all across the Trans-Canada Highway to be able to bypass stations. So there was always and always, even if you was a charger that didn't work, you could always get to the next station. Every single time that I used those stations, they worked flawlessly. They were amazing. And they were actually, which I was quite interested, they were 62.5 kilowatt chargers, which is, I've never heard of that before. But yeah. So anyway, the thing is, I knew that we would have a good chance of setting a good record, because where it took me almost like 2 days to go across, 2 years ago, we did it in less than 12 hours, with these stations. So that and it's 900 kilometers. So we only charged, I think it was 3 times. Let's see, hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. We took 4 separate stations to make it across to Port aux Basques. And then just before we got on the ferry, we filled up before we got on the ferry. So that was five stops. And it was just, they were right off the highway. We didn't have to go, a few kilometers off. They were right there, super convenient. And they initiated the charge within literally 15 seconds or less. So, and most of our charge times were, the first one was 60 minutes, but that's because I went to a full battery. But other than that, it was 20, 29, 55 minutes. And those were fairly, good speed charges. And I was really happy how that went. And getting through Nova Scotia, we went into the flow chargers, and then it was once we got past Moncton, we actually stopped at an Audi dealer where they had a 50 kilowatt charger. There was a Petro-Canada station in Moncton, but when you talked about the research, on my way across the country from Vancouver, or actually I started actually in Victoria all the way across, I documented all the charging stations along the way to see where they were located, not just, going through GPS, but to actually see where they were in a big parking lot, because a lot of them are in big parking lots and they're not always easy to find. So getting familiar with every single charge stop made, I thought, a big difference when you come back to them, and just to make sure how reliable they were, because there's the reliability of some stations are definitely better than others. For example, when I first started with Electrify America going 2 years ago, there was lots of issues, and they weren't. I mean, even though I got successful charges, sometimes it took a lot longer than what you would expect. The difference between then and now, massive difference, way more reliable. I was really excited to know that Petro-Canada had, chargers that were spanning the entire country except for Newfoundland. All right, they were all across the country except for Newfoundland, and these were usually 150 kilowatts up to 350 kilowatts, which were, my car can take 150 kilowatts up to 80%. And a lot of times the chargers were down. I actually blew a fuse when I was in Manitoba. It was actually funny. I got to tell you this story because it's hilarious. I'm coming across, and I just before Winnipeg, I go into, I think it was in Saskatchewan, or just before you get into or just after Manitoba. We're just getting into Manitoba. I charge. It charges right away, and it's going up to like 140, 150 kilowatts. This guy comes up to me and he says, "How do you like the way your car charges in these chargers?" I said, "It's been fantastic. It's great." And then just as I said that, there was a big, huge bang, and the pole on the highway basically blew a huge fuse with a huge arc of electricity. It was hilarious. And fortunately, I could charge, across the street at the co-op chargers from Connect, it's called. But it was just hilarious. But the point is that the Petro-Canada stations, when they're working, are phenomenal. They're fantastic. I could get my 150 kilowatts, and I would get right up to my 80%, right 150 kilowatts all the way. And then it would bring, as you get past 80%, it'd get to, let's say, 110, 100, 75.
You're getting into the taper, yeah.
Yeah, tapering it off. But usually I would cut it out, at 80 or, 90%, working my way across the country. But I had a lot of issues with Petro-Canada. And I would say the reliability factor, just wasn't there. Whereas, when you go to a gas station at Petro-Canada, you just know that it's going to work. And when you go to a flow station, if you go to some of the other stations that we went to, like Ivy were really good, and the Electrify Canada I was mentioning are really, really good, and Circuit Electric in Quebec were flawless, and overall most of the charging networks were really reliable, and but Petro-Canada was disappointing. I would say the reliability factor was 75, 80%. But we were very fortunate that on the way from Newfoundland to the West Coast, to Victoria, I'd say we only had one issue in Rivière-du-Loup. Other than that, it was great. I mean, we got our 150 kilowatts most of the time. And the only time that we didn't get 150 kilowatts when we were taking showers in Medicine Hat, where we actually needed the sun.
You took showers?
We took showers, yeah.
These guys are living the life.
Take
what the
any
hell?
showers?
At about 3 a.m, it was awesome.
Yeah.
We only had showers at the end.
The car was charging at 100 kilowatts And when we got after we got both our showers, it was at 98%, the battery. So it worked out really well. And after that, we got 150 kilowatts of power all the way back to Victoria. It was awesome. The Electrify Canada stations worked perfectly.
Hey, Ian, talking about showers, maybe that'll dovetail into one of your questions that you had about how things went camaraderie-wise.
Yeah, well, that answers one of the questions.
We only talked in the car. We got separate showers when we got to Medicine Hat.
Well,
so it
goes without saying.
Just to be very clear. Best Western sponsored our trip.
Oh, very nice.
Partners, Sun Country Highways, for about 9 years internationally, and we're their exclusive, provider of charging stations and such. But they offered, obviously, we could have stayed at other hotels and had lots of showers, but that wasn't the plan.
So I had another question. I'm sorry to jump in here. These things are just coming off the top of my head here. Ian, please jump in. But
no worries. Go.
So you guys are talking about your planning stages. Now, forgive me here. I've seen the e-Tron. I haven't driven it. Does it have charging navigation kind of algorithms and mapping and stuff like the Tesla's doing there? Or did you have to use something else? Like Ian and I ended up using a Better Route Planner, which is a fantastic website to plan the trip, only because of the fact that it took into account things like temperature, extra weight, road conditions and stuff, things that the Tesla doesn't do. I mean, the Tesla's great in terms of like, okay, you type in, you go to that charger, it's dead accurate. But the navigation is geared towards trying to reduce the amount of time charging for us. If you're in Vancouver and you want to go to Halifax, it always wants to dip down in the States. So I'm curious to see what tools that you use to actually plan your routes in advance. And was it done in the car or on a phone or a laptop? Like, how did you guys do about that?
Okay, Ken, I'm going to have to say that I did the planning on this one.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Like initially, a lot of the planning was done with Harvey, and we talked a lot, but he did an exceptional job, on that. But on the route, we used a few different tools. But go ahead, Harvey.
Yeah, I mean, I actually learned a lot from you guys. Okay, in my planning, and part of that planning was the fact that you took, you didn't want to charge 100%. You wanted to charge, 50, 60, 70, 80, or whatever it was, and to charge faster and charge more often.
Yeah.
So I really learned a little bit from that. On my first trips that I did, I would charge. I mean, I wasn't in a hurry, right? The first time, 2 years ago, I would charge always at 100%. Whether it was at Electrify Canada America, when I did that 1,400 kilometer drive, I did 100%, other than one time. But in this case, the time because it's kind of you're trying to set a record. You definitely get a higher speed up to 80% on my car anyway. I know that on Teslas, it kind of tapers off before 80%. Is that right?
Yeah, 60-ish, it starts tapering.
Yeah.
It's worth making that the style is very, very different, because you from 0 to 80, you're pretty much a steady 150. In the Teslas, especially when we're in the center of the country and we have the V3 chargers that are capable of 250 kilowatts, you only get that for maybe a minute or two before it starts to taper down. And once you're past about 50, 60%, you're under 100 kilowatts. So for us, like, the magic moment was like the least amount possible. There's plenty of time when we only went to 45, 50%. And then we would go down into the 5% range. And what I thought when I looked at your charging log, you guys were often over 20, you were arriving with 20 or 30%. But on the e-Tron, that's not really a penalty, because you can charge up to 80 and you're still going at 150. So as long as you're anywhere between 0 and 80%, you're getting the same charge rate. So you can be much looser about what your departure and arrival SOCs are. It's one of the nice features of that car.
Yeah, it's a totally different experience than driving Teslas, which I've had for a decade, right? So, the charging on the Audi was definitely different than the Tesla.
Yeah, and anyway, so what I did was I just I used a lot before, like the tool of Google Maps, right? And there I could see the distances, the specific different distances between the different charging points. And I take a look at my range which I don't want to. I didn't want to take any chances of barely making it there. So I knew that I wanted to charge more often as well. So in case there was a faulty charger where it wasn't working at all, or it was going really slow, that there was another option. So so that had a lot to do with it. And the thing is that compared to 2 years ago, where there was no other option, if that charger wasn't working, I would be stuck.
Yeah.
Period. Where with the charging infrastructure that existed now, I mean, that's the other thing that it was the purpose of, was to show people that, there's no real range anxiety anymore, because you have options, and and it's only going to get better and better and better. So the way I used the planning was I spent a lot of time on Google Maps trying to figure out where the right chargers I wanted. I was always targeting the 150 kilowatt capable chargers, and the only places really that didn't have them was Newfoundland. But there's no other options for anybody else, including Tesla. They're going to have to be using those same chargers. And I think the Audi, in this particular case, which you just mentioned, Trevor, was the fact that it accepts a charge, the highest rated charge, right up to 80%.
Yeah.
And even after 80%, it's still charging, at 120, 100, and then 90. I mean, it's still great. And so that's why going across Newfoundland worked out really, really well. And it was once we got past Moncton and into Fredericton, we were targeting always 150 kilowatt chargers. And the only area where it was an issue was between Ottawa, which was the last Electrify Canada, which is the only Electrify Canada station in Ontario that we chose, because we weren't going Southern Ontario. It was on Ottawa. And then after that, it was Ivy, and then it was some other company called Jules, which I never heard of before. And that was a totally different type of charge. And then that was a bit of a struggle. But once we got to Sudbury, we were back into Petro-Canada. We got our 150 kilowatts all the way across to Medicine Hat, pretty much.
It's funny you mentioned that, because it kind of mirrors some of the troubles that Ian and I had encountered. Now, we kind of chalk it up to, early teething problems, I think, with the superchargers. But Northern Ontario, lots of problems with getting power to those little... those little towns. I mean, they're supposed to be V3s, and with the V3s with Teslas, each one of them is dedicated to 250 kilowatts. So if you're pulling in 5 of them or 4 of them, I mean, you're talking a megawatt worth of energy. I don't think they were pulling in a megawatt on those ones. FineLab has a line of protective coatings that were engineered to protect your Tesla's paint, leather, carpet, plastic, and wheels, effectively blocking all those UV rays and environmental factors before they ever get to ruin your brand new baby. FineLab offers a complete line of car care products and ceramic coatings for both the do-it-yourselfer and professional detailers. Did we mention we also have the world's first self-healing coating? Check us out at finelab.com, that's spelled FEYNLAB, to see the science behind the self-healing. Check out our product catalog and click Contact Us for a free quote from a certified installer in your area. FineLab and Tesla, we were meant for each other.
Well, yeah, just like I blew that fuse in... I think it was, let's see here.
Eastman, was it? Or
it was in Whitewood, Saskatchewan. That's where I had that issue. And we went back there, and that time the charger worked fine, But I think you actually talked to somebody from Petro-Canada to make sure that these chargers would be as good as they could be. I think you talked to somebody to help with the planning of making sure that those chargers would be reliable.
Right. Yeah. Like it was, they're level 3 is new, right? When it first came out, Sun Country Highway didn't jump into it because we didn't want people to have a negative experience, to be honest. But now they're really, really reliable. So we're starting to roll them out now, and it's going to be good. But a lot of the 50 kilowatts are really going to be like dinosaurs, because do you really want to spend an hour and a half at a charger, or do you want to spend 20, 30 minutes, right? And so most people will just go to the 150s moving forward. I think most of the people that spent their money on the 50 kilowatts, which, a lot of them are pretty expensive, are going to have a hard time getting their money out of it. Like I just drove from, say, Saskatoon to Calgary the other day, and coming purely on Tesla superchargers, and it was 12 hours, right? So coming through the south, through Medicine Hat, and going north through Edmonton, it was about, say, 14, a bit longer than that. But if they went straight through between Calgary and Saskatoon, it would only take about, say, 8 hours, right? But it's you guys are aware, right? It's painful when you're on long trips at 50 kilowatts, and here I am. When we launched ours 9 years ago, we were at 20 kilowatts, and that was blistering fast compared to 6 kilowatts, which everybody else's charging network in North America was, although you couldn't travel on them. But yeah, like it's 150 is really. I think it's the sweet spot to be able to hit 150 and take it right on through to 80 and maybe even 90. But a lot of ours on the Petro-Canadas were, we're pretty much filled, close to 90, 90 plus, like it was really good compared to, the Tesla superchargers or the other chargers out there. As you said, Ian, Tesla superchargers are fast for a few minutes and then it just drops right down. Like this latest trip is on, it's, 20, 40, 50 kilowatts at a time, like pretty slow. But the trip across Canada with Harvey was pretty nice.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, when I totaled it up, I did a little stats comparison of my own, and what I worked out was you guys managed to achieve approximately 17.2 minutes of charging per 100 kilometers, and we were 14.5. So not a big difference. It's only about a 15% difference. So it shows you how far the competing networks have come in charging capability in the cars themselves, and the fact that the Audi can pull that, high charge rate for such long periods of time, it puts them right in the same zone in terms of, pretty much how much time it takes you to charge on a trip like that. It's really impressive.
Yeah, and the new Audis can do 250, and the Porsche I think can do 250. So it's only going to get better, right?
Yep. Yeah, well, this is it. And, and Hyundai now is targeting 350, and I mean the numbers are just going up and up and up and up. So
yeah, Kia's at 350. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it won't be too long. I suspect the next step for Tesla will be around 350, especially with the new 4680 battery cells that are coming, because they can take really high C rates on those, I believe. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. I would agree. Now, Electrified Canada did have 350 kilowatts, right?
That's true.
Chargers, right? But we just couldn't accept the charge.
Yeah. Yeah, the Taycan can take 350, somewhere around there.
270.
Yeah, okay, there it is. 270.
They started, I think, at 350, and now they throttled it back to 270. I think they had some concerns about the heating at 350.
Probably.
Yeah. It's if they can take 270, which is amazing.
That's if it's 270 for a long period of time, that's plenty quick.
Oh yeah.
So a quick observation. I want to see if you guys kind of agree with Ian and I. Doesn't it feel like driving through Ontario is just like a never-ending story?
Well, I've been doing it so many times now that, just like when you've done it as many times as I have, because I did it, when I was very young, and I always make fun of Wawa, Ontario, because they call it Wawa because of, wah, like that. But once you do it a few times, like, I've done it now there and back 4 times, like, within 2 years, you actually get more familiar with the territory. It doesn't seem as long.
Okay.
But when you're first going, it just seems like it's going forever and ever and ever.
That was my experience.
When you talk about like the internal coastline, from basically the Halifax to Vancouver Point, out of the 6,000 kilometers, Ontario is 2,000 of it. This is what people don't appreciate. You look at it on the map, it's like, it looks like it's, it's proportional, but it's because you have to go around the Great Lakes. It's so long. But I will say I enjoyed it a hell of a lot more than I thought. I thought it was a beautiful part of the country.
Highway 17 is beautiful.
And it's just a continuous, long, sinewy set of these long sweeping curves. I mean, it was even fun to drive. I never used the autopilot going through there. I was just foot to the floor, steering the thing myself, and having a great time. I loved it.
Couldn't use autopilot some of
those. let me correct you again. It's over 7,000 kilometers, not 6.
Oh, all right. Okay.
But mind you, but from Halifax, yes, 6,000.
That's what I'm saying. Like if we look at the interior portion of the country, it
That's
represents literally a third of it. And even if you add, the bookends like you guys did to get every single kilometer of the full Trans Canada, it's still close to 30. It's 30%. It's pretty significant.
Yeah.
But do know that we didn't stay on the Trans Canada Highway all the way. I mean, there were sections that we didn't go on the Trans Canada Highway, but it was important to go from one end to the other. And, if we would have taken the Trans Canada Highway all the way, and I think this is important to mention this, because if somebody wants to break our record, which I'm sure it will be broken, to verify that you're on the Trans Canada Highway would be very difficult, because you can definitely go faster by taking different routes. And the best example is going from Kamloops, BC to Hope, BC. Mind you, now you can't even take the Coquihalla because you can't. It's impassable because of the natural disasters last week. But at the time, and we always
Newfoundland as well.
That you first of all, the speed limit on the Coquihalla is 120 kilometers an hour, which means you can be legal, going a little bit over, right? And it would take 3 to 4 hours faster to go to Kamloops via the Coquihalla, right? So that's significant. The other difference, the Trans Canada Highway, when you get into Vancouver, you'd have to go to Nanaimo, and then Nanaimo down the southern part of Vancouver Island into Victoria, and that's another 3-4 hours added on. So it wouldn't sound good if it was over 5 days. We did it in 4 days and 18 hours and some odd out, in 25 minutes or whatever. But
including about,
I think part of the strategy for somebody to do it in the future is that it's easy to document the starting point and the finish point. They can make whatever route they want to take, as whatever strategy they want to take, as long as they stay in Canada. And then they can take whatever route they want. And of course, the best route for the majority of the time is the Trans Canada. But we actually took a slightly shorter route when we went to go through Montreal. We didn't want to actually go through Montreal.
You took the 30 south?
We went through Quebec City and then through Ottawa on the north side of the St. Lawrence River, which I thought was a bit shorter. So that's why we did that.
Yeah. So it was a little bit different than my first trip, 9 years ago, where we did every single inch of the Trans Canada Highway. But then we were rolling at the Chargers. We had full control of that. Where this one, it was, that was a discussion we were going back and forth on is, do we do every inch like we did 9 years ago? Or do we just go from point A to point B, which is what we decided to do. And it's actually better that way. You can actually see some nicer area. There's certain sections of the Trans Canada that are not as nice as other roads that are going parallel to them.
There's some interesting milestones, and I think it'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the website very quickly, just to talk about it real quick. Again, I'll put a link in the video description. You guys can check it out at Mary Ann's Electric Drive. Now, here on the front page, Ian, you probably recognize that middle picture right at the top there, the center of Canada.
I most certainly do, sir.
We blew right past that, and I was like, what the hell is that? And we did a U-E, and we came back, and we stopped, took a few pictures, and got the hell back on the road. So
I was kind of half asleep, and I woke up and said, Trev, I promised the guy here in Winnipeg. It was the journalist from Winnipeg who had asked if we could get a shot there, type of thing, or that's where he was going to meet us, type of thing. And I just woke up right at the moment and said, "Turn the car around. We got to go get a picture there."
Speaking, what do you guys think of that photo? I mean,
it's cool. No, I know you guys went off the highway there and took a long shot. That's really nice.
That picture actually was taken 2 years ago when I did the trip the first time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, I recognize that because you don't have the graphics on the car. It's not wrapped.
Yeah, and the other thing is how I did it is there is a service road between the Trans Canada Highway and that display.
Yeah, I remember it.
All right.
Yeah. Yep.
And there's a ditch between the Trans Canada Highway and that service road.
Yeah, I remember
the ditch. And I wanted to line up the car exactly the way you see it.
That's a great way.
And to do that, I had to wade through this ditch that was filled with water. I wanted to make sure there was no alligators in there.
Yeah, they're big
And
fur
Yeah, in
bears.
Manitoba, I don't think so.
and I waited. I was in shorts, so it was no big deal. I just waded through the thing and came up the other side of the ditch and got to the exact height of the car and the sign. It just worked out really nice.
It's a great shot.
It's
By
gorgeous,
the way,
yeah.
if you go to the website, they have a link here on the bottom right called "Follow on Polar Steps Photo Journal." The first time we actually saw this is when we had Roman and Guillaume, remember, who did the Portugal to Norway trip, and they did something similar on this website. Highly recommend you guys go and check out this website. Again, links will be in the video description. You can check it out. But they documented right from start to finish, and they've got this really neat little timeline here at the top. And unfortunately, it looks like it's not working. So just give me a second here. If you guys are watching on YouTube, you may not see exactly what I'm talking about here. Let me just bring up the website so you can see it. There we go. Okay. So they've got this really neat timeline. You can start on the left and you can scroll, and as you scroll, it loads the blog post that they did along the way. And on the right hand side, they got this really cool map that geotags everything that they went. So, anyways, it's really cool. It's a really cool website. Next time we ever do a trip, I'm definitely using this for something that we're doing. Yeah,
It's super impressive. It makes it so fun to scroll through. It's like
yeah.
you're
You guys
almost
took
on the trip
way
with
more
you guys as
pictures
you
than we
go,
ever
yeah.
did. We were hightailing it.
I found out when I was first documenting my trip 2 years ago, I wanted to find. I never heard about polar steps, and I Googled. I wanted to let people know where I was in real time, and I Googled some search words, and polar steps came up, and it was way better than I ever imagined. And one of the things that I was planning to do on my website was to have a daily blog. But to do a daily blog with photos and everything on a website, it just takes forever to do it. I mean, hours and hours. And I was having the first 4 days of my trip 2 years ago was all consumed by doing this log, and I wasn't having fun. And with polar steps, I could take pictures, do videos right on the polar steps as well. You can do videos, and as long as a minute or less, and you can write a little story or a little story or a long story. You can add as many pictures as you want, and it identifies where you took those pictures in real time. And it was just a great tool. And I turned so many people onto polar steps that it's just an amazing website, and it's totally free.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And their catch on how they make money is that you can actually order a hardcover book with all the colors, all the pictures you took, with all the dialogue that you did, and have it on your coffee table.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Wow.
I wish I knew about this.
We got to do the trip again just so we can get the book.
I know. We used an app on our phone, on my phone, called Glimpse, which gave everybody like a live view of where we were going on the highway. And of course, there were some times where people were like, "What the hell are you guys doing?" Because of course I'd have my phone in my pocket, so we would go charge, and I go into the bathroom. Remember that? People were like, "What are you guys doing?" You're like, around.
Are you guys doing laps at the hotel?
Anyway, I highly recommend anybody who's a traveler that whether they travel on a holiday for a weekend, for a month, for a year, they can document their whole trip so easily by taking photos, write a little blurb, and do a little video, and it's all included, and it's free. It's such, and here's the thing: is a lot of people are nervous about what they publish online, and with this Polar Steps is that you can send links to those people only who you want to see it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be made completely public. On mine, I did make it completely public because I definitely wanted to promote my wife's favorite charity, plug. And but the thing is that it's just a great tool. And if somebody wants to follow you, you have to give permission to that person to follow you as well. So there is a better control than, let's say, Instagram or Facebook or something like that. It's more selective, you could say.
the St. John's shots there that you had on polar sets at the start there were pretty cool. So, like, God bless you guys for doing what you did from Halifax to Vancouver. It really needed to be, expressed, because really before that it was, our level 2 charging network that we did, almost a decade ago, right? And we could have done it in about 2 weeks. On that 100 amp charging network, but we did 30 days. But it would have been nice to do 2 months to sort of get the word around the world more, because that electric cars existed and they could actually travel, and they could travel in Canada's winter, etc. I would highly recommend, if people do this, they go all the way to St. John's, because especially if they're Canadians, but even if not, St. John's, Victoria, you see so much more in that extra little stretch on both ends. But being Canadian and knowing about Terry Fox and going to that same exact spot that he launched from, and it was really cool on this trip, because I did that, when we launched, almost 10 years ago, from the same spot. But this time we actually met a commissionaire's fella that was there when Terry Fox took off.
Oh, wow.
And that was pretty amazing. He was saying, like, here comes this kid with one leg, and he's talking about running all across Canada, a marathon a day. And he goes, I looked at him and I didn't even think he was going to make the next town. Like, how could anyone do this? And for him to be able to, do what he did and even get halfway across the country was just miraculous, right? But to be Canadian and be able to launch from that same, same footprint basically as where he was is pretty cool. And they have some, quite a bit of information about Terry Fox at that spot in St. John's. So definitely would recommend that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Visited Newfoundland for the first time on a motorcycle trip this past summer, and I fell head over heels in love with the place. My God, are they incredible people? I mean, it's like everybody says the Newfies are the most welcoming people in Canada, and man, do they ever blow by your expectations. Like, the bar for me was set high, and they were just incredible. I loved every minute of staying there, and it's so much more beautiful. Like, everybody talks about the place. Well, the Rock. Oh, you got to go to the Rock. And you have this impression of it just being like basically rock, trees, and bears. Like, wow,
moose.
Where's the sizzle in that steak? But you go, and oh my God, is it so beautiful? I mean, there's parts of it, I would say, driving through the more mountainous ranges where we went off. We went off the main highways and explored the back roads, and it looks like parts of the Alps in areas. It's just stunning.
It is a gorgeous province.
It's on my bucket list. I plan on doing a very long trip eventually. But
when I first went, 2 years ago, again, going through Newfoundland, going through Cornerbrook, I didn't even expect this ski resort called Marble Mountain. I'm not sure if you guys know that there's one of the best ski resorts in Eastern Canada. It's probably the best ski resort east of the Rockies, right in Newfoundland. And they're getting all these storms coming in, tons of great powder snow. And I never even knew the place existed. And I'm driving by, and I had to stop off, and this guy that I bumped into, the sales manager, he told me about Grossmore National Park, which I never even heard of either. And Grossmore National Park is one of the highlights of Newfoundland. And he said, you have to go. And so I went the following day, that evening. Actually, there was no charger at the time. There was a Sun Country Highway charger at the Wing It restaurant in Deer Lake, right, which is just north of Cornerbrook. And but I decided to I needed a full charge, and I wasn't going to stay overnight in the Wing It restaurant. But there was a few times I charged at a campground. And there was this campground called Gateway to the North. And they have 1540 NEMA plugs, to power RVs and stuff. And my Audi charger, my cable, plugs right into that. And I'm able to, and I purposely purchased from MEC a sleeping bag and tent, and because I knew that I needed to possibly, have my car charging overnight, at a campground. So because there's not every hotel, had chargers, to be overnight. Thanks to you, Kent, That was awesome. So many hotels that I stayed at across the country, had your chargers, and it just made my trip so much easier. But the point is that Gross Mourn was just amazing, and I went back again with my brother this past summer, and we did some really nice hiking, and you can spend a whole week in Gross Mourn National Park. And it's the crust of the earth is right there. The actual crust of the earth that you can walk on. It's amazing.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely better to take a 3-day trip across the country than a day trip. Right? So much better.
Oh, we're having some technical difficulties there with the streaming. Question for you guys: did you guys run into our friends Rolf and Silka on the West Coast, the guys with the Model X who did the trip in, I think it was around 2016 or early 2016 with their camper? Man, those were really trying times back in the day. No superchargers, very few superchargers back in the day.
Well, that's it. They would have been doing it mostly on level
2, yeah, campgrounds.
Like in Kent Spirit, it was a very pioneering effort at that point. They were doing a lot of campgrounds and things to fill in. They had a very relaxed schedule. They took months and months and months to do it, and it was mostly a road show, again, to promote EVs, but they weren't really trying to set a record. They really wanted to just meet the maximum number of people possible and show that it was possible to travel, in a leisurely fashion. So
great people. Hope to see them
really
again.
Are. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually had dinner at their house in Victoria when we did get down there.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
Yeah, they're a beautiful couple.
They really are.
Absolutely.
Super
Salt and beer. Yeah.
I think, well, we're at the top of the hour now. So I'm just curious, now that you've done the trip, anything that you learned along the way that you would say would be improved maybe the next time you would do it?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I was just saying back in 2012 when we installed the chargers along the whole length, we wanted to make sure that we had enough that if one charger wasn't there when we got there, wasn't working, the snowplow hit it, we could still get to the next charger. And that's really important for anybody traveling in an electric vehicle is don't risk it. Don't leave it to the very last. Don't bypass a charger to get to another one. Make sure that you have that extra that extra buffer because it's not fun to run out of charge somewhere. But for the most part, the vehicles nowadays are coming with faster chargers on board, 350 kilowatt vehicles. So obviously it would be better to go with the faster charging vehicle than say at 150 max. And September's a good time because it's off shoulder season. And it's sort of not too hot, not too cold. You don't really need the heater much. You really don't need the air conditioner much. But there's a lot of little things that there's 101 different little things you can do, right? But for the most part, you shouldn't test a new technology. So we tried one charger, and that was it would have been better to maybe bypass that. If you're going to go for a speed record. And it's only going to get easier and better, right? With the chargers that are there, they're going to get more reliable. The customer service is going to be better on all of those charging networks on the level 3, and there's going to be more of them. So it's somebody's going to be able to do this in less than 4 days.
Any other electric vehicles that you would like to do a trip like this with? I mean, considering that there's more stuff on the market now, I mean.
There's so many vehicles.
I know which one you want to use.
I can't really, Yeah, well, the Audi GT would be nice. The Porsche would be nice. But there's so many more coming out, like the Kia, can get up to 350, so, the Hummer's coming out soon. The Cybertruck, I'm not certain when it's going to arrive, but I do have one on order or two. So, we'll sort of see. But there's 101 different ways of traveling, but definitely don't push it if you don't need to. Enjoy Canada because it's gorgeous.
Okay, well,
so, Harvey,
if I was going to do it again, I would. I probably would do it maybe the first week of June before the big rush, and there you have more maximum time driving during the daytime hours, and that means also warmer temperatures as well, which would help with range and charging speed as well. So I think the time of year would be the best. Would be with still not having the rush of the the summer traffic. I think if you do it at the beginning of June, you still have a lot of great daylight hours. I think that would be number one.
However, there is snow in June or May 2-4 weekend, right? It'd ideally be better before May 2-4 weekend on traffic-wise, but there has been snow in some provinces in June, right?
Mm-hmm. Planning my trip to Labrador, Newfoundland, the first week of June, both those areas got snow. It's like, oh, well, it's a good thing we didn't go early.
It's terrifying.
Well, the thing is, if you go through Alberta, you cannot count on not getting snow any month of the year. So I mean, it's just the luck of the draw. You know, there's certain things that you just have to hope that, you know, the luck is on your side. I mean, anything could happen. I mean, torrential rainstorms. I mean, huge
flooding in BC. Who'd have thought?
Flooding in BC.
Yeah.
I mean,
flooding in Newfoundland.
We very
fortunate. Just got wiped out.
Yeah, I think we were very fortunate on our trip that you know, I didn't even know that from when we were going through the Rockies, going from Lake Louise to Golden, they actually a few days later they closed that road. And we talked about that. They were doing a big, huge reno, you know, of the Trans-Canada Highway there, massive construction, and they were rerouting people down to Radium Hot Springs and coming back up through Golden that way. And had we left 4 or 5 days later, we would have had to make that detour. That would have been a massive disruption in our overall time, you know? So,
a question, when did you guys go through Northern Ontario? Was it night or day?
Mostly
Middle of
night.
the night.
The night.
Yeah,
middle of the night. You didn't pass many gas stations, did you, that were open?
No.
We saw
but
nothing.
All the superchargers.
And that's an interesting point, and that's something that we do mention to people because, you know, if you're going in the middle of the night, 2-3 o'clock in the morning in some of these northern places, and you need fuel, you're out of luck. And the nice thing about the chargers is that they're always open.
They're open 24/7.
Exactly, and that was a real eye opener because you know we've been driving. I've been driving Teslas for like 4 years now. And you forget all about the gas station situation, right? And some people, well, you lose electricity, you can't charge. Well, guess what? You can't fill your pump either, buddy.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I had my big epiphany in Northern Ontario when it was just like we were driving hours and hours and hours and hours and not one gas station was open. And I said, you know what? We just hit a bit of a milestone here because, you know, you can travel across the country in a few days and you can also travel across it, you know, fairly conveniently. And it's actually safer to travel across it in an electric vehicle because they're always open and you're not going to get stranded as much. Mm-hmm. So about 2 hours after that epiphany, Harvey was driving and I had just fallen asleep and Harvey goes, hey, wake up, there's something on the road. And I looked up and it was a wolf eating something. and he goes, what was it eating? And I said, I think it looked like a gas car driver that ran out of fuel and he was walking, you know. So, but yeah, you know, it's actually safer in a lot of cases to travel in an electric vehicle, you know, in regards to getting fuel, right, and not getting stuck on the side of the road. So, so just an interesting epiphany.
You know, you talk about safer. How many times have you driven in the summertime and seen a car pulled over the side of the road with their hood up because their radiator blew up?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're never going to have that problem with an electric car. I mean, when you look at all the systems that an ICE vehicle has to go wrong compared to an electric vehicle, it's like there's nothing to go wrong, really. I mean, relatively speaking. So when you think about not just getting gas or electricity at, you know, late at night, but just your overall downtime for some mechanical issue, you're just not going to have those issues.
Yeah, well, we all know that
in BC right now, you know, they've been fuel rationing the last week, right? Mm-hmm. And a few people went across the border and got hit with a $5,000 fine because they were just going over to fill up their car, right? And so, you know, who would have thought, right?
Yeah, I've seen there's, I think it's the Vancouver Electric Vehicle Organization's put a call out to its members, you know, to volunteer and assist people who need to get places and don't have any fuel. And it's lovely to see that, you know, that people recognize the advantage of this and are using it to help everybody else out. It's a great gesture on their part.
Yeah, the Viva Club and the Victoria Club have always been awesome. Individuals, really trying to help everybody out. Great volunteers.
We electric drivers got to stick
clubs.
together, and help everybody out.
I got to make a quick shout out to Buddy Boyd. And
yes.
Do you guys know who he is?
Can't say I do.
That I found out about Viva when I was looking on doing research from 2 years ago, and I saw his pictures on some YouTube channel or some Facebook. He had he was driving across the country with his dog and his wife. I should say his wife and his dog. And he was in Newfoundland. He had, it was Bolt. He had a Chevy Volt, and Chevy Bolt, and his website, I think, or his Facebook is Bolt Across Canada.
Oh yes, I remember that.
A year before I did my trip.
I remember that.
And so he had this massive sticker on the rear quarter panel of his car saying Viva, and I had no idea what Viva was. And I looked it up, and it was the Vancouver Electric Vehicle Association. And within the day, I signed up for it. And they were really helpful in helping me plan my trip and learning more about EVs and getting support from all the members. And it's been a great, resource for anybody that's interested in electric vehicles and the future of sustainable sustainable transportation.
We should also give a good shout out to our friends at EV Society as well.
Oh yeah, totally.
Right.
Like there's so many amazing clubs around the world, all the Tesla clubs as well. And
Atlantic Canada.
If it wasn't for these people, we wouldn't have EV adoption where it is at, and we wouldn't really have much of a hope of solving climate change, right? Mm-hmm. So, hats off to everybody. Even if you've only put an hour in, good on you. Spread the word of those clubs and get it out there. And they really make the experience so much better for new people. And then that ripples around the world. So
and we did see Buddy actually when we charged in Salmon Arm at Electrify Canada station, and I don't know why he was there that day. I can't remember, but he was there, and it was first time.
He took some video of us because I was notified. I met him because when he went across the country, he was mostly charging under chargers, right? So he did the whole Trans Canada as well. So when I was coming through, he said, "Let me know, and I'll take a video of you guys driving past." So he did that, and then they followed us to the Electrify Canada station.
Excellent.
Yeah, and then he actually we were also together the week later. I was invited to go to the Sunshine Coast EV Society, where they had a big, huge day of showing everybody's EVs, and it was their most popular. They do it every year in September, towards the end of September, and I was so happy to go. And Buddy was parked right next to my car, so it was great to spend even more time with him.
Excellent.
And it was a great day. It was a great day.
Oh, we love car shows. Well, we're getting...
The unique one about that one, I will say, is they went across Canada without any garbage. It was a zero waste tour all the way there and back. So they even took a little composter to, compost their food and stuff,
cool.
Right? Like it was amazing, what they did. Yeah. Yeah. So that's Buddy and Bart.
Lovely.
I know we're coming close to running out of time. I had one more thing about the route planning, though, that I think anybody who did what you guys did and incorporated the ferries, I think would want to know is how did you time it so that you would arrive at that last possible minute at the ferries? Because that would be stressing the crap out of me. And like, you don't want to waste any time waiting for the ferry,
Harvey,
right?
Don't get anyone fired, okay?
I'm going to answer that question, okay? That was a big hurdle, actually. And I knew that if we went, one of the benefits of going from west to east is that overall you have the prevailing wind to help you, right? Okay, so that kind of makes sense. Plus, if I'm from Vancouver, it just kind of makes sense for me to go that way as well. And that's the way I was planning on going. And I knew that there's only 2 sailings a day going from Sydney, Nova Scotia, North Sydney to Port aux Basques, right? And if you're missing, you have to be there 2 hours in advance, okay? And there's no guarantee that if you're 10 minutes late, they won't let you on that boat or that ferry. And that means you could be wasting 12 hours for the next ferry. And that would put a huge dent in your time.
That's a lot of prevailing wind benefit, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
So when we decided to go from east to west, and partly because I wanted to visit my family and friends, and it just made sense for me to see my family and friends in the summertime when the days are long, and I just thought it just made sense to now go from east to west, even despite the prevailing winds, which possibly will be against us. And we did have some pretty heavy duty winds going from just outside of Winnipeg, right to Saskatoon. We're really heavy. Even going into Medicine Hat, we were going against the wind all the way there. And
well, even
we're
Calgary,
really heavy.
Right up to Calgary from Winnipeg, it was bad.
Yeah, once we got past Calgary, it wasn't so bad. But I was watching the prevailing winds, going from west to east, and there were days where you would think you'd be going with the wind, but you were going against the wind. So it's really a crapshoot as well. But the biggest benefit of going from east to west is to time the ferry.
Yeah,
from Port aux Basques to Sydney. So I didn't want to get to the ferry too early to wait in line, right? And I didn't want to be there too late that I would miss it. So by being able to calculate how long it would take us to get to the ferry made a massive difference. We actually timed it just really perfect.
So you were there just 2 hours before on the almost?
Well, Kent may not like me to say this, but
don't get anyone fired.
I'm going to listen. I don't mind telling our secrets because there's always going to be other factors involved. But I originally called the to make a reservation. I did call the office to make my reservation, and I said, if I'm an hour late, can I get some sort of reprieve because I'm trying to do this speed thing? And they said no, right?
Okay.
And then I asked them again about a few days prior, and I got a positive response from this really nice lady. And they let us get onto that ferry an hour and a half later than we had to be there.
Wow.
And that allowed us, once we got to Port aux Basques, to charge the car 100%. And we got on that ferry 45 minutes in advance instead of 2 hours in advance. So that was an hour and 15 minutes saved, which meant I knew that we could leave St. John's an hour later, which would take a full hour off our time.
Excellent.
Now it all makes sense because I was looking at your time. I'm thinking I couldn't. It's like, how did they get there 2 hours ahead?
I'm giving away my secrets. Okay, Kent, sorry.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I know it's going to get beat anyway, and you may get lucky with talking to Marine Atlantic ferries, or you may not. I was a smooth talker, I guess. So you may have to be smooth talking the right person at the right time. But normally, you don't get that reprieve.
No.
And we were, and when we got off that ferry in North Sydney, we did not have to look for a charger. We were full. We went all the way through Nova Scotia, right through to just before we got to New Brunswick, where we had to charge. Yes. And then that took us to Moncton. And then Moncton, once we got past Fredericton, we were 150 kilowatts per hour all the way until we got just past Ottawa. And then it was great.
What we got to do now is we got to convince the ferry companies to offer, level 2 charging on board. How cool would that be?
We've talked about that.
We talked to BC Ferries about 8 years ago about doing that, and just wasn't, it wasn't a big enough priority for them at that time, but it would be very nice, So, but I will say that, now that Harvey shared the secret, the really nice lady's probably going to get fired because 3,000 other people saying, "Hey, I'm going to race across
That's
Canada.
True.
I need to." But so she won't.
I don't
be
want
there
to get her
spring.
in trouble.
So you're probably not going to.
Please,
get
please,
that
everybody
advantage.
listening, for the benefit of the nice lady that works for Maritime Atlantic, do not request this. Okay, you did not hear this. This never happened.
Yeah. But the other good thing about launching from Newfoundland was you have to get there first, right? So it's more relaxing than in Vancouver Island, right? There's less people. It's just I think it's really good to clear your senses, and because it's pretty heavy duty to do this type of trip, and make sure that you book the Newfoundland ferry really early, and make sure you get a room. We actually got really lucky at the very end. I think Harvey's sweet talking got with somebody else got us that room, but make sure you book it, because otherwise you're sitting in seats for another 12 hours, right?
Yeah.
And that's no fun, when you're about to try to cross the whole country and without sleeping much, right?
Yep.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful trip, guys. And the old saying is, records are meant to be broken.
Totally.
When Ian and I did our trip, we welcome anybody. I mean, we knew that if you did it in the summer with a more efficient car, then anybody can break this record. So all of us are just trailblazers, and the whole idea here is to let people know that electric cars are here. You don't have to make excuses anymore. Price of gas is pretty obvious right now. I mean, the choice is pretty easy. Yeah. Of course, with the price increases because of the pandemic and stuff, the affordability is actually kind of, not as good as it used to be. But I expect those things to come back in due time. So on that note, since you guys are our guests, I'll let you go forward. We always do a thing at the end of the show. If people want to contact you, social media, websites, whatever you want, how can they get a hold of you? Kent, why don't you go first?
Well, LinkedIn is probably the best for me, just because I don't spend a ton of time on Facebook, or my email, kent@suncountryhighway.com. And that's KENT@SUNCOUNTRYHIGHWAY.com. But LinkedIn is by far the best, because I get a few hundred emails every day, so sometimes they get buried. Over to you, Harvey.
Yep.
Well, best way I would say would be my email address, and that's my first initial H and my last name Soicher, and that's spelled HSOICHER @telus.net. An email, I'll get that. Also, Facebook, I'm good, and LinkedIn, I'm good as well. And I welcome anybody's comments. I'm happy to. For me, it's a passion, driving an EV and being an EV adopter. I feel really good about doing my little part in helping people get into sustainable personal mobility. And I'm happy to share all my experience, and whatever help I can assist with, I'm more than happy to.
Excellent. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Ian, why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Well, anybody who's been listening to the show long enough knows where to find me. I want to go out.
Well, not everybody. We have new viewers and listeners who are kicking in.
You can find me on Twitter. The handle is @IanPavelko. But what I want to focus on was, one of the things that really blew me away about your project, Harvey, was the fact that you did this as a fundraiser in Mary Ann's memory, and I'm so touched by that. I want to encourage absolutely everybody listening. You're hearing every single one of you out there. I want you to go and visit Mary Ann Electric Drive, all one word, .com. That's
Mary Ann's Electric Drive.
Link will be in the video
Mary
description.
Spelled MARY, ANNS. So
yes,
Mary
there is an S in there. My apologies. So it's Mary Ann's with an S, Electric Drive. .com.
Yeah. And there is a link directly to the Mary Ann's favorite charity, which is the Vancouver General Hospital Foundation. And all the proceeds go directly to Dr. Christopher Honey's research for his team on Parkinson's research and other brain disorders, where he has used those funds to create breakthroughs for thousands and thousands of people that otherwise would have a very poor quality of life, and he's changed people's lives. And he trains the different surgeons around the world. So it's not just in the Vancouver area. He impacts surgeons around the world for these special techniques to improve people's quality of their life.
Excellent.
That's what I really liked about that charity, was the fact that, it's a pay it forward model, right? So you support that. He goes out and trains other doctors. They go out and save other people's lives, literally. And, it's pretty magical. And it's really what the EV community has been doing. There's been lots of people that have traveled across the country, Buddy Boyd, Wolf and Soicher, Harvey. We actually had EVs race for 3 years, and then we had Americans and Canadians traveling across the country for a month. And and those, when people do that here or in the States or in other countries, they really do inspire and empower other people to believe that it's possible, and to believe that amazing things are possible. Hey, you can travel across the country for free, or internationally for free. And this trip, as you said, records are meant to be broken. 9 years ago we did it on, took 30 days, but it would have taken about 2 weeks, but slow. It's getting faster. The charging infrastructure is getting better and faster. The cars are getting better and faster. So the more people that go out there and actually get out there and make a difference and show people what's possible, it's really going to help drive competition within the EV charger networks and the manufacturers to do better. And I think that's really what we need to do, because the more they do, the more the world's going to change, and we're going to have a chance at solving climate change, thanks to EV drivers around the world and proponents.
In regards to the charity through Vancouver General Hospital Foundation, of course, you do get, it's a registered charity, you do get a tax receipt to go against all those Tesla owners that have bought Tesla stock, and they have to reduce their there you go. Their earnings. Right?
I hear is Elon Musk has got a lot of money. He's unloading a bunch of shares.
He needs to reduce his tax burden.
He's got a lot of gains that he may need to donate some money to charities to offset that. Yeah,
nice. No doubt. Well, guys, we got to wrap this up. Ian, finish off what you were saying.
That's it. I just want absolutely everybody who's listening to the show, I want you all to visit that site. It'll be in the show notes. If you didn't catch it on the first time around, Trev will put it down there.
Yep.
So please do that. And I thank you so much, gentlemen. That was absolutely awesome. I hope we can talk to you again some point and maybe meet up on the road out there somewhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and one final point. I mean, one of the things that I liked from both of you, Ian and Trevor, was the wrap up of your trip on video. I think it was a half-an-hour video, which I watched fully and was inspired by that. And I have an editor. I'm not the best editor, so my editor is coming back from France mid-December. So by the before Christmas, I should have a new video out, which will showcase the entire trip from start to finish. But in the meantime, there are videos that are on my website as well, on my YouTube channel.
Well, I'll tell you what, when that video is ready, you'll make sure you ping me, and I'll let everybody on social media and on the forum and stuff know. Okay?
Yeah,
you bet. Yeah.
Sounds good. In closing, I would like to shout out to Best Western and thanks for them, because they did sponsor the trip for us, even though we weren't really staying in their hotels along the route, just in St. John's and in Victoria. But they were a great sponsor for us.
That's only fair. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's it for today, guys. I know it's a little bit long, but hey, it's all fun when we got lots to talk about and lots of fun stuff. We're kind of all kindred spirits here. So we highly encourage you guys, if you want to do a long trip, it's totally possible to do there. You have no more excuses. Well,
that's I just want to say thank you guys. You guys were awesome. And
well, the pleasure is ours.
Your comment about records to be broken, the bottom line is what we're trying to both accomplish, right? Is that we can do a quick trip across the country with no inconvenience. It really was no inconvenience. And that's really the main focus here.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Well, that's it for this week, guys. We will let you go for now. You can follow us, TeslaOwnersOnline.com, best place to be talking about Tesla and EVs. You can follow me on Twitter. The handle's Tesla Owners Online. And I want to say thank you to our sponsors, the guys at Evanex and the guys at Fine Lab Ceramic Coatings. And lastly, I don't want to forget you guys on Patreon who pay every month to get early access to our stuff. If you want to be a patron, you can go to patreon.com/Tesla Owners Online and sign up for there. Anyways, that's it for this week. We'll see you next time, guys. Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you later.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Right.
Bonsoir tout le monde.
Bye, guys.